Emma walked through the grand entrance of the Harrison estate, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and a hint of nervousness. Her wavy auburn hair swayed gently in the breeze as she took a deep breath to calm herself. She had never dreamed she would one day take on this role, caring for the young twin boys, Liam and Noah, in such a lavish home. As she stepped into the living room, Emma's eyes wandered over the ornate walls and plush furniture. It felt like she had entered a completely different world, far removed from her modest apartment. After all the struggles she had faced, landing this job felt like a blessing. She felt grateful, not just for the steady income, but for the fresh start it offered. Emma's responsibility was to care for Liam and Noah, two adorable boys with sandy blonde hair and bright green eyes. When they ran toward her, their innocent smiles and cheerful laughter warmed her heart. From the very first day, she felt a special connection with the boys, and over time, they became the reason her life felt more purposeful. As Emma adjusted the window curtains, she suddenly heard a faint noise from outside. It wasn't loud, just a soft rustling, but enough to make her pause. She stood still for a moment, listening intently, telling herself it was probably just the wind brushing against the trees or the neighbor's dog passing by. But then, the sound came again, this time more distinct, seeming to come from the hallway. Emma's hand trembled as she reached for the light switch, hesitating, unsure whether to turn it on. She glanced back at Liam and Noah, who were blissfully unaware of any concern. Emma reminded herself to stay composed so she wouldn't alarm them. Liam, sensing Emma's presence, opened his eyes slightly and looked up. "Miss Emma, is everything okay?" he whispered, his voice tinged with worry. Emma gave him a reassuring smile, gently brushing his soft hair. "It's nothing, sweetheart. Probably just the wind," she said, though she wasn't entirely convinced herself. Then Noah sat up too, his sleepy eyes filled with concern. "Did you hear something? Is it Mr. Fluffy on the roof again?" Emma forced a light-hearted smile, nodding gently as she pulled both boys close. "Maybe it is. But just to be safe, I'll go take a quick look outside. You two stay here and don't worry, okay?" The boys nodded obediently, but their eyes remained fixed on Emma, as if afraid she might vanish if they looked away. Emma's heart raced as she walked toward the door, her hand gripping the doorknob tightly. She tried to keep her voice steady, though a sense of unease lingered. "I'll be right back. Just close your eyes and go back to sleep, all right?" "You promise?" Noah asked, his voice trembling. "I promise. I'll be right back," Emma replied, giving them her warmest smile. Gently, she opened the door and stepped into the dimly lit hallway, where faint moonlight filtered through the curtains, casting an eerie glow along the long, silent corridor. Each step she took echoed on the wooden floor, heightening the tension in the air. Suddenly, another noise sounded, a creak at the end of the hall. Emma froze, her heart pounding in her chest, her hand gripping the railing tightly. She reminded herself to stay calm, determined to protect the two sleeping children behind her, no matter what might happen. Emma took slow, cautious steps, almost holding her breath as she moved toward the end of the hallway. The sound grew clearer, like someone trying to move quietly on the old wooden floor. With a tense hand, she placed her fingers on the doorknob of the storage room. Where the sound was coming from, her heart racing with an inexplicable fear. Before opening the door, Emma hesitated for a moment, trying to calm herself. Every sense was heightened, alerting her that something was wrong. She took a deep breath, her hand still trembling, then slowly turned the knob. The door creaked open, revealing darkness shrouding the room. The faint light from the hallway barely illuminated the space, but it was enough for Emma to glimpse a horrifying sight. There on the cold floor sat Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, the owners of the house, bound tightly with rope, their mouths covered with tape. Their eyes were wide, filled with terror, as if trying to convey an unspoken warning. "Mr. and Mrs. Harrison," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible in the tense silence. She quickly knelt beside them, her hands trembling as she began to untie the thick ropes. But Mr. Harrison shook his head slightly, his eyes urgent, as though he wanted to tell her something crucial. He signaled for her to stop, his gaze full of worry, darting toward the door, silently warning her of an unseen danger. "Don't worry. I'll help you get out of here," Emma whispered, though her mind was racing with questions about what was happening. Just as she managed to loosen one of the ropes, heavy footsteps suddenly echoed from the staircase, loud, deliberate steps drawing closer. Emma froze, her hands still gripping the rope that hadn't been fully undone. Her heart pounded wildly, each beat like an explosion, signaling the imminent danger. In that critical moment, Emma had only one thought: Liam and Noah. She had to protect the two boys, no matter what. Giving Mr. and Mrs. Harrison one last look, she understood that they were trying to protect her, signaling her to leave quickly. Without wasting another second, Emma released the rope and slowly backed toward the door. Her gaze hardened with determination as she resolved to return to Liam and Noah's room. She had to move fast. The boys were waiting for her, unaware of the threat lurking in the house. With her heart filled with anxiety, Emma carefully closed the door, trying not to make any noise. She swiftly made her way back down the hallway, her steps light yet urgent. Her mind was focused on one sole purpose: to protect Liam and Noah at any cost. Emma quickly but cautiously made her way back to Liam and Noah's bedroom. As she opened the door, the two boys' eyes immediately focused on her, filled with worry and fear. The stillness of the room made Emma's footsteps sound unusually loud, amplifying the tension within her. "Miss Emma, what's going on?" Noah whispered, clutching his stuffed bear tightly, as if it were the only thing providing him with a sense of safety. Emma tried to give them a gentle smile to reassure them. "It's all right, sweethearts," she said in a warm tone, hoping her voice would help ease their fears. "There was just a little noise outside. I'll stay here, and nothing will happen to you, all right?" Liam, the more perceptive one, seemed to sense something was amiss. He leaned toward Emma, whispering, "Is it Mom and Dad? Are they back?" Emma shook her head, looking at Liam with a tender gaze. She didn't want to burden them with the terrible truth she had just witnessed. "No, honey, your parents aren't back yet, but I need you both to stay here with me, all right." Suddenly, a loud noise came from the hallway, sounding like something heavy had fallen to the floor. All three jumped in shock. Liam and Noah's eyes widened with fear, and their small hands clung tightly to Emma, seeking protection. Emma gently pulled them close, feeling her own heartbeat strong but determined. "Liam, Noah, listen to me," Emma said softly, looking each boy in the eye, her tone serious and resolute. "We need to be very quiet now and follow what I say, okay?" The boys quickly nodded, their eyes both fearful and filled with absolute trust in their nanny. Looking around the room, Emma's gaze settled on the large wardrobe in the corner. "Boys, I need you to hide in the wardrobe. I'll stand right outside and won't let anyone hurt you," she said in a quiet but firm voice, instilling a sense of safety in them. Noah took Liam's hand, and together they quietly stepped into the wardrobe. Emma gently closed the door, leaving a small gap for them to breathe and see. Then she turned back, standing firmly in the center of the room, her eyes sharp and calm, fixed on the door like a soldier ready to protect. The sounds from the hallway continued, each noise, each footstep, making her heartbeat stronger. But in her mind, there was only one thought: protect Liam and Noah at all costs. She stood there, resolute and brave, ready to face any threat lurking within the house. Emma stood in the center of the room, her eyes locked on the slightly open wooden door, listening intently to every sound outside. The soft glow from the nightlight illuminated her face, highlighting her determination and bravery. Fear no longer clouded her mind. Instead, a fierce resolve to protect Liam and Noah, who were hidden in the wardrobe, took over. She knew she couldn't let any danger come near them. The footsteps in the hallway grew louder, cold and deliberate, drawing closer with each step. Every beat of Emma's heart seemed to sync with the footsteps, urging her to stand her ground. As the door slowly creaked open, she took a deep breath, ready to face whatever was coming. A tall figure appeared in the doorway, the dim light casting a shadow that made him appear even more menacing. He stepped inside, his sharp, piercing eyes scanning the room as if searching for something. Emma stood tall, her gaze steady, prepared to defend the children she had come to love as her own. "Who are you? What do you want here?" Emma asked, her voice calm but laced with underlying tension. The stranger smirked, a mocking grin full of challenge. "You should step aside and stay out of matters that don't concern you," he said, his voice low and chilling. A surge of anger rose in Emma's chest. She knew that any compromise now could put Liam and Noah in danger. "No, I won't let you harm anyone in this house," she declared, her voice firm, her eyes unwavering. The intruder frowned, taking another step toward her, but Emma didn't back down. All traces of hesitation had vanished, replaced by an unshakable courage. She was no longer just a nanny. She was a protector, willing to face any threat to shield the children she cared for. He paused, staring at Emma, seemingly surprised by her defiance. Though she was just a petite woman, the strength and determination in her eyes made him hesitate, if only for a moment. But Emma knew the danger wasn't over, and she had to do everything in her power to stop him. The room fell into a heavy silence. Emma gripped the metal hairbrush in her hand tightly, her eyes never leaving the stranger standing just a few steps away. In that moment, every sound around her seemed to fade, leaving only the pounding of her heartbeat, reminding her to stay focused. The stranger looked at her, his gaze cold and unreadable. After a moment he smirked, as if amused by her defiance. "You think you can stop me?" he sneered. "You're just a nanny. You should know your place." Emma took a deep breath, feeling a wave of determination rise within her. She wasn't easily intimidated, especially with Liam and Noah hiding in the wardrobe, fragile and vulnerable. She knew her options were limited, but giving up wasn't one of them. "Yes, I'm just a nanny," she replied, her voice steady and her eyes sharp. "But whether I'm a nanny or anyone else, I won't stand by and let you harm those I care for." The stranger laughed, his voice echoing through the room, filling it with a chilling vibe. "You're either very brave or incredibly foolish," he said, stepping closer, his shadow swallowing the faint light in the room. Emma's heart raced, but she didn't retreat. Her gaze remained steady, and she tightened her grip on the hairbrush, ready to defend herself if he came any closer. She wasn't sure what she could do, but her courage and love for Liam and Noah fueled her strength. Suddenly, Emma heard the sound of the boys breathing from inside the wardrobe. Noah, in his effort to stay quiet, let out a slightly louder breath. The stranger immediately noticed, his eyes flickering toward the wardrobe, a dangerous glint appearing in his gaze. "So they're in there," he said, his tone dripping with malice, and he began moving toward the wardrobe. Without hesitation, Emma rushed to stand in front of the wardrobe, raising the hairbrush like a makeshift weapon. "You're not allowed to go near the boys," she shouted, her voice filled with authority. Despite the clear difference in strength, she stood firm, resolute, and prepared to protect Liam and Noah at any cost. The stranger paused, looking at her once more with a mix of surprise and irritation. He could see the fierce determination in her eyes, a resolve that wouldn't be easily shaken. Emma stood firmly in front of the wardrobe, where Liam and Noah were hidden, her eyes blazing with determination. She gripped the hairbrush tightly, her fingertips numb from tension, but she refused to back down even an inch. The stranger stared at her, his eyes flashing with anger and irritation. He hadn't expected a mere nanny to stand in his way like this. His expression shifted from surprise to challenge, as though testing whether Emma truly had the courage to stop him. "You're bold, aren't you, Nanny?" he sneered, a threatening smirk tugging at his lips. "But you'd better step aside before it's too late." A cold bead of sweat trickled down Emma's forehead, but her gaze remained unshaken. Despite the fear creeping into her mind, she held her ground. "I won't let you harm the boys. Liam and Noah are under my care, and I love them. You can do whatever you want of me, but you'll never touch them." The stranger let out a cold, mocking laugh, filling the room with a chilling atmosphere. "You think you can stop me with just a hairbrush?" He glanced at her makeshift weapon with a look of disdain. Emma didn't falter. She knew the hairbrush was nothing compared to his strength, but she had no other choice. Her only thought was to protect Liam and Noah. She replied with a steady, fearless voice, "I have more than just this hairbrush. I have courage and determination. You will regret it if you take one more step." The stranger's expression shifted, his patience wearing thin with her defiance. He took a heavy step forward, his tall figure casting a shadow across the room like an approaching nightmare. Each step heightened the tension in the air, and Emma could feel her heartbeat thundering in her chest, each beat like a battle drum. As he drew closer, Emma suddenly lunged forward, jabbing the hairbrush into his hand, hoping to make him retreat. Caught off guard, he let out a growl of pain, instinctively pulling his hand back. Though the jab wasn't very strong, it was enough to distract him for a moment. Sensing an opportunity, Emma quickly stepped back, positioning herself firmly in front of the wardrobe where Liam and Noah waited breathlessly. The stranger looked down at his hand, a small wound leaving a streak of blood. His gaze filled with fury. "You'll pay for that," he snarled, his voice thick with menace. Emma didn't budge. She looked him in the eye, her voice unwavering. "I'm not afraid of you. As long as the boys are safe, I'll do whatever it takes." He stared at her for a long moment, seemingly surprised by her unyielding stance. A flicker of astonishment crossed his face, but it was quickly replaced by rage. He took another step forward, and this time, it was clear he no longer intended just to threaten her. Realizing the situation was becoming more dangerous, Emma knew she couldn't stand idle. She thought of Liam and Noah, their vulnerability, and the trust they had placed in her. She couldn't let them down. "If anything happens, run to the neighbor's house, okay?" Emma whispered silently in her mind, like a quiet prayer. Suddenly, the sound of a car horn blared from outside the gate, shattering the oppressive silence in the room. Both Emma and the stranger turned toward the sound, as the headlights from the car illuminated the tense scene between them through the window. The sound of a car horn echoed from outside the gate, breaking the tense atmosphere in the room. Both Emma and the stranger startled, and the car's headlights cast light through the window, illuminating the standoff between them. Emma's heart pounded, but she quickly realized this might be her only chance to protect Liam and Noah. The stranger hesitated slightly at the sound, his gaze shifting from Emma for a moment as he looked outside. Taking advantage of his distraction, Emma stepped back, her hand firmly gripping the wardrobe handle. She maintained her stance, ensuring he couldn't reach the boys hidden inside. She could feel the wide, watchful eyes of Liam and Noah peeking through the small crack in the wardrobe door. They held their breath, not daring to make a sound, fearing even the slightest noise might give away their hiding place. The light from the car continued to shine through, and in that brief moment, Emma felt a strength and courage she never knew she had. She knew she wasn't a hero, but for the two children she loved, she was willing to face any challenge. The stranger hesitated for a moment, perhaps surprised by her resolve, but he quickly regained his angry expression. Suddenly, the car horn blared again, followed by a voice calling from outside. "This is the police. We receive an emergency call from this house. Is anyone inside?" A wave of relief washed over Emma as she felt a surge of strength, knowing that help was near. The stranger's face showed clear alarm as he glanced out the window, his eyes filled with worry. Threatened by the police's arrival, he took a step back, then another. Realizing he was cornered, his gaze turned angry and frustrated. "You got lucky this time, but don't think you'll always escape," he said, his tone menacing but with less confidence than before. Emma met his gaze, her voice calm yet powerful. "You can leave, but don't ever come back here. This is my home, and I will do whatever it takes to protect those I care about." Suddenly, the sound of police sirens blared from outside once more, and this time, The flashing blue and red lights cast a cold glow through the window, filling the room with an icy brightness. Both of them froze as they heard the front door open downstairs and the footsteps of police officers approaching up the stairs. Realizing that the situation was no longer in his favor, the stranger looked back at Emma, his face filled with resentment. "You think the police will always be here to protect you and the children? Don't fool yourself." His tone was full of threat, but it was clear he had no choice but to leave. Emma didn't respond, her gaze still resolute. She knew that any display of fear or insecurity could put Liam and Noah in danger. She stood her ground, vigilantly watching his every move. He took a step back, then turned and strode angrily out of the room, his heavy, furious footsteps echoing down the wooden hallway. As soon as he was gone, Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her, but she didn't allow herself to relax entirely. The sound of the police footsteps grew closer, and finally, they reached the door. When the officers entered, Emma exhaled, her eyes filled with gratitude and relief. She turned to open the wardrobe, where Liam and Noah were still hiding. The two boys immediately rushed out, hugging her tightly. "Miss Emma, we were so scared," Noah whispered, his voice trembling. Emma knelt down, gently stroking the boy's hair, her voice soothing and reassuring. "It's all over now, sweethearts. We're safe." After the situation had calmed down, the police escorted the stranger out of the house, leaving a quiet, peaceful atmosphere in the room. Emma held Liam and Noah tightly in her arms, her eyes fixed on the door where the tense and dangerous confrontation had just taken place. Mr. Harrison, the homeowner, entered the room with the police chief. Their eyes were filled with worry and gratitude as they saw Emma and the two boys safe. Mr. Harrison approached, his voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you, Emma. You saved my family. You saved my children." Emma gave a gentle smile, though her heart was still pounding from the ordeal. "It was what I had to do, sir. Liam and Noah are dear to me. I couldn't stand by when they were in danger." The police chief stepped forward, his gaze sharp but full of empathy. "We received an emergency call, and luckily, someone noticed and reported it to us in time. Miss Emma, you were incredibly brave to protect the children like that." Emma nodded softly, feeling a sense of relief, knowing it was finally over. She looked down at the two boys still clinging to her, their eyes filled with both fear and absolute trust. Liam looked up, his small voice breaking the silence. "Miss Emma, you're so brave. We're so grateful for you." Liam's words brought a smile to Emma's face. She gently stroked the soft hair of the two boys, her voice tender. "I'll always be here to protect you, Liam and Noah. You're my family, and I won't let anyone harm you." Mr. Harrison stood quietly beside them, his eyes glistening with emotion. "Miss Emma, I am profoundly grateful to you. You're not just a nanny, you're part of our family. We'll never forget what you've done for my children." Emma looked up at Mr. Harrison, warmth spreading through her heart. Despite the fear and tension she had endured, she realized that this house was not just a workplace, but a place where she had found love and a sense of belonging. In this moment, she knew she had truly become a part of the Harrison family. After that night, life in the Harrison household gradually returned to normal, but Emma's feelings had changed profoundly. Each day she cared for Liam and Noah. She felt her heart grow more attached to the two boys. The moments they shared were no longer just part of a job. They were moments of family, a feeling Emma had never imagined finding in this house. She treasured each day, as if every moment was a crucial piece helping her discover herself. Every morning, Emma would go into the room to wake Liam and Noah, gently pulling back the curtains to let sunlight filter through, casting a soft glow over the boys' innocent faces. "Miss Emma," Liam exclaimed as he opened his eyes, his face lighting up like a flower. He quickly sat up and wrapped his arms around Emma, his eyes bright. "We dreamed that you'd stay with us forever." Emma smiled, placing a gentle kiss on Liam's forehead. "I will always be here with you, my dear Liam. That's a promise." She felt her heart racing, each word she spoke deepening her commitment. This wasn't just a job. It was an invisible bond connecting her to this house and the children she dearly loved. As time passed, Emma grew closer to the Harrison family. Mrs. Harrison often invited her to sit and chat during family evenings, where they would share stories from the day and laugh about small memories. Mr. Harrison, typically a serious man, now looked at Emma with a different gaze, the gaze of a father toward a daughter. He understood that Emma had become an irreplaceable part of their family. One evening, during a family dinner after Liam and Noah had gone to bed, Mr. Harrison paused, set down his fork, and looked at Emma. "Emma, you don't know how grateful we are to you," he said in a warm, deep voice. "Since you came, you've done more than we ever expected. You're not just a nanny. You're an important member of this family." Mrs. Harrison nodded in agreement, her eyes shining as she looked at Emma. "We can't imagine our lives without you, Emma. You've given my children love and security that only family can provide." Emma felt a warm wave fill her heart. She looked at Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, sensing their sincerity. Despite the fears and worries she'd faced, she realized she had found a place she could call home. This house was not just where she worked, but a place where she felt she belonged, a place where people shared joy, sadness, and meaningful moments with her. As she walked down the hallway, Emma looked back at the spot where she had once felt fear and worry. Now, each step she took was light and confident, as if every challenge she'd faced had left her with an indescribable peace. She knew she'd found where she belonged, and from now on, she would always be here, protecting and loving this family with all she had. As time went on, Emma's presence in the Harrison family became increasingly significant. She wasn't just a nanny who took care of Liam and Noah. She gradually became a sister, a friend, and an irreplaceable part of their lives. For Liam and Noah, Emma was a rock, someone who was always there to listen to their joys and sorrows. On weekend afternoons, Emma would often take the boys outside to play in the garden, where there was a large, old tree that Liam and Noah loved to climb to get a view of the surroundings. Emma joined them in games, gardening, or sharing stories. Every time she heard their pure laughter, Emma's heart filled with joy. She realized that happiness was sometimes just these simple moments spent with those she loved. On a table, a vibrant drawing showed Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, Liam, Noah, and Emma all standing side by side, holding hands, smiles on their faces. Emma's heart melted as she looked at the picture. She couldn't stop herself from feeling moved, realizing she had truly become a part of this family. "Miss Emma, you'll always be our family, right?" Noah asked softly, his clear eyes looking up at Emma with a trusting gaze. Emma knelt down and gently hugged the two boys. "Yes, my loves. I'll always be here with you, no matter what happens." Mrs. Harrison entered and, seeing the scene, her eyes glistened. "Emma, you've brought more to our family than we could have ever imagined. Thank you for loving and caring for our children as if they were your own family." Emma smiled, her heart brimming with emotion. This house, with each laugh, each innocent smile from Liam and Noah, each warm moment with the Harrison family, had become a place where she truly felt she belonged. Each passing day brought her a bit of peace and happiness, things she hadn't thought she would find. She had found a home, a place where everyone shared joy and sorrow, where she loved and protected those dear to her. Emma's life had changed, and so had she, from a simple nanny to an essential member of the Harrison family. As time passed, Emma grew even closer to the Harrison family. She was no longer just a nanny, but a true member, loved and accepted as an irreplaceable part of the household. Each day, she felt the value of connection, sharing, and the sincere bond between people who truly care for one another. One evening, the whole family gathered around the dinner table, the warm light illuminating their radiant faces. Mr. Harrison suddenly stood up, his voice deep and warm, filled with emotion. "Emma, we want to thank you for everything you've done for this family. You haven't just cared for our children. You brought peace and happiness into this home." Mr. and Mrs. Harrison handed Emma a small gift wrapped in a delicate box. When Emma opened it, inside was a simple yet elegant necklace engraved with the words, "Family is everything." Emma's heart swelled, and tears filled her eyes. "Thank you both so much. This is the most precious gift I've ever received," she said, her voice full of emotion. She turned to Liam and Noah, gently hugging them close. "You are my family, and I'll always be here to protect and love you." In that moment, Emma realized she had found a true home. This house was not just a workplace, but a place she could call family. And from that day forward, she would stay here, where she belonged, with those who loved her and those she was willing to dedicate her heart and life to protect. After everyone had left the dinner table, Emma stood quietly, looking around the room, a place where, just a few months ago, she had been a stranger, a newly hired nanny to care for 2 children. But now, in every corner of this house, she felt the warmth of love and closeness she had never known before. Each picture on the wall, each burst of laughter, each gentle look from Liam and Noah carried the message of a true family. Emma understood that family isn't just those who share your blood. Family is the people we love, those we're willing to protect and pour our hearts into, the place where we find peace and meaning in life. She realized that the true value of family doesn't lie in titles or roles, but in the genuine affection and connection shared among its members. Emma's story with the Harrison family is a testament to the power of love and loyalty. From being a stranger, she had become an irreplaceable member, and this house had become the place where she truly belonged. It was her sincere love and devotion that transformed this relationship into a real family, a home built on trust and shared moments. Through her journey, Emma understood that each of us can find our family not only through blood ties, but through the heart and genuine care. And from deep within, she knew she had discovered the true meaning of life: to love, to protect, and to become a part of a family she would always cherish.